Today we've got Steve from Wolves at the Gates. Super excited to chat with you, Steve. I think it's been like over 3 years for sure since we last chatted. I think maybe the last time we chatted was when Eulogies came out. So here we are, like 3 years later, and now we're talking a little bit about the new album. We're just super stoked for you to be on, but we'll dive all into the new album. But before we get into that, how are you doing today, Steve?
I'm doing well. Yeah, as I said to you before, no news is good news. 3 years of
true.
Yeah, not too many high highs and not too many low lows, just status quo, which I will not complain about. So family's doing good, band's doing good, we're having fun making music, and it feels great to feel this youthful about, I guess, creating music, even though our birth certificates don't say that we're youthful. So
well, what is youthful for Wolves at the Gate? Yeah, where are you guys at on age? I see a couple gray hairs starting to pop up there, so I'm curious.
Oh yeah, well, I think I'm at 720p right now. So if we were any higher definition, you would see more than a few. I'm 38. I'll be turning 39 this summer. Ben will be 40. He's going to be the first to crack the 40.
Dang.
Oh
yeah.
Man, I love it.
Yeah.
When did you first get a gray hair? Because I just got my first like real patches this year, and I'm 32.
So it really depends on like when you say patches or gray hair. Are we talking lone single gray hair?
No, we're talking like all right, I can like not only can I tell, but everyone else can tell.
And it's inevitable at this point.
Yeah, I think
there's no turning back.
Yeah, I think 35 is when it was like, oh yeah,
okay,
right here, same spot for my dad. So
it makes sense.
And
where's yours, Cullen?
Yeah,
mine's on the sides, and then in my mustache. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the mustache.
It does seem like maybe generally that's where it kind of starts, somewhere on the sides and facial hair too.
Yep.
Do you feel the impending age cliff in the metalcore world?
To be honest, I've always felt old in the scene, not because I always was, but I think I just personally, I think a lot of guys started playing in bands when they were younger, and my first band was Wolves when I was like 21 or 22.
Yeah.
You know, and I was already like I was finishing my junior year of college, you know.
Sure.
And a lot of guys, like, they're cutting their teeth at like 15, 16, 17. And then they're on tour, you know, by the time they're 17 or 18. And so by the time we were touring full time, I was 22 or 23 years old. And so a lot of these guys, I was like 5 years older than. And so we would talk about influences, and they were influenced by the bands that are like current, and I was influenced by bands that have all broken up or been in hiatus or whatever. So yeah, we always felt like as a band we showed up to the party a little too late, but that's eye of the beholder.
Well, I don't know. I've always felt like you've always had kind of, at least you individually, have always had kind of a stoic kind of individuality and soft-spokenness where maybe that lends itself a little bit to, I mean, you're very thoughtful when you speak, you know what I mean? So it's not like you're like going out there and doing the old, touring antics, maybe like the 15-year-olds would have been.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I'm not nearly as entertaining as most entertainers, and that's probably
that's not what I meant by it, but okay.
Well, that's how I see. Oh, I didn't think you were saying that, but that's how I see it. I'm much more like, I guess I'm much more like the bands I was influenced by, you know, I think I probably just identify with their personalities more. Like one of my favorite bands is Thrice, and I felt like I could identify with their vocalist, most like personality wise, because like I'm a weird hybrid of introvert extrovert. I think although I could be either one depending on the situation, but I'm just like trying to do what probably fits the needs of like the group. But at the end of the day, I think I would rather kind of just like do my own thing. So.
Makes sense.
Speaking of Thrice, your speaking voice sounds very similar.
You
to
are
Dustin's.
a lot like Dustin. Yeah,
that's something you've noticed.
It's true.
We both just ate nails, you know, and gravel for cereal and just got these gravelly, voices.
You kind of look like Dustin.
You kind of
got the same build, the same facial hair and everything. You kind of look like Dustin right now too.
Yeah, I'm like the Fiverr Dustin Kensrue.
Yeah, but you're just like slightly more
the
attractive,
Temu.
So it works out in your favor.
Well, I appreciate that. I'll take one small victory that has nothing to do with music.
Other than just being more attractive than your hero.
Yeah, hey, that's always a good thing, though.
If I ever meet him, I'll tell him that there's a few people that this is how they feel.
Yeah, you can tell him it was Mason and Cullen.
You can definitely tell Dustin, say specifically, Mason Menega thinks you're less attractive than me. Just say that straight up, and Dustin will be like, "Oh,
sounds about right."
It's hard to believe 17 years now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have been together. Like it's kind of. I mean, I don't know. Like, have you thought about the fact that if Wolves at the Gate was like a human being, it would be able to drive right now?
Yeah. That is. I've never thought about it, in those terms. But that is really funny to think about. Hopefully, the band is at least as mature as a 17-year-old at this point. That would be awesome.
According to the federal government and Citizens United, I mean, you could technically vote too. Pretty soon.
I think our band would abstain from voting. Exercise our right.
Well, that's good. You're not one of them Christian bands then, are you? No, just joking.
Yeah, we're the most least political. If
you're like Amish metalcore.
No, definitely not Amish. No, unfortunately.
Well, they abstain from voting.
Yeah,
though.
they do.
Yeah, that's true.
Except for this last election, they voted.
That's true.
That's true. You're right. You're absolutely right on that.
Yeah, well, that's where we're different. Is I would say I might not have said that in years past, but presently, that's probably where our band would have landed. But I would be fine if we weren't really ever associated with politics. It's one of those things where it's like I have strong opinions about politics, but I don't ever want to be remembered or identified as like a loud voice speaking in that world. Just because as a Christian, it's like it's not even really the kingdom that I want to see advance. It's part of being a part of the kingdom, but it's definitely it's not who I am. And so I didn't mean to do that.
No, that makes total sense. No, you're absolutely right.
That was just stream of consciousness talking, forgetting that I was actually on a podcast.
No, that was good. That's good. I think it makes a lot of sense because never in the history of politics has politics ever actually lined up with religion or Christianity or spirituality in general.
Well, certainly not like one particular party.
Exactly, that's what I mean. Like you can't fit that into a box.
No one party is going to fully capture the gospel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's I think what is upsetting for me is when people think it is or it does. To me, I see it as like these are apples and oranges. Like, why are we trying to make them the same thing? They're not. Be invested in politics, care about your community, your society, try to be a good citizen, but don't tie everything in the stream of politics to your faith because they just don't line up. They don't have the same categories. There aren't the same goals. There aren't the same tools, the same means. So
yeah, unless your name is Khomeini. Iranian Revolution. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Never mind.
Yeah, I was just reading about that earlier before we got on the pod.
1953. Sorry, my bad.
Well, let's talk about the new album. It's called Wasteland. It comes out. In fact, Spotify now has this whole thing where it's like it's got a countdown.
Mm-hmm.
I just found this out recently.
It's very ominous.
There's an album coming out. It's got a whole countdown now.
Countdown to Wasteland.
So it's 30 days. Exactly 30 days, and Wasteland's coming out. Yeah, let's talk about the new album. What has this whole process been like for you with this new album in terms of maybe like how it compares to previous albums? Does it feel like you guys are trying to do something maybe a little different? Does it feel pretty much the same as any other album? Yeah, I'm just kind of curious just what the general vibe of this album is like in comparison to other albums.
Yeah, hopefully it's well, for us, we were trying to do a lot of things differently about probably about 75% of how we approach albums we tried to do differently. Because normally in the past I'd write songs and then reflect back on sort of what the theme of what I was seeing, through the writing. But this was kind of the first time that I kind of determined the theme and the vision, not just lyrically and thematically, but also sonically as well. And that's kind of why it took us a little bit longer to get to where we're at, with releasing the album. You said it's been 3 years since Eulogies came out. We did a cover album in between, and that was kind of like we needed to like blow off a little steam, and so we did that, and that was a lot of fun, and it was a little bit of like a bucket list thing. So we're like, now's the time, but it did give us a little bit more time to really zero in and focus on creating this album and kind of looking at it from a much further like vantage point, of trying to think about from start to finish, thinking about that musically, thinking about it thematically. And that takes a lot of songs. And what we're trying to do as well with the idea is going to require a lot more songs than even what's in this album, The Wasteland. So, it's been really challenging in a good way and refreshing, making me think differently, think outside the box, and hopefully it's delivering something different for the listener.
Yeah. So would you say that it's more along the lines of like a concept album then?
Yeah, it's a bit of a dirty word nowadays.
I know, but I think it's the correct word in most cases when you're actually thematically overarching, having a message there, right?
Yeah, I think the only reason why it gets that idea, I said it's a dirty word, is just because people immediately will then compare it to just other examples, and they'll either have a really strong opinion, that they're excited, or they're not interested. Yeah. But our goal was to write good songs, not to write a bunch of songs that feel like a concept album, but you couldn't just listen to one song on its own.
Right.
And so that's what we're really trying to do, is to provide the same sort of album experience, but to do it thematically and within the realm of a concept, and for the album to flow better. So I mean, some of my favorite albums, like The Receiving End of Sirens, Between the Heart and the Synapse, I just love the way that album feels from start to finish, the way the songs flow together, but the songs are so distinct, with the interludes, or the way songs will end and begin. And we're like, man, we've been a band for so long, we've never even tried to do this before. And I know why. It's because it's hard. And so, and it takes thought and planning, and it always kind of intimidated me. And how it is for bands, it's like by the time you finish an album and like catch your breath, like it's already time to start working on the next one.
Right.
And if you don't really give yourself some runway, you're not going to essentially land the plane. And that's what I would hate to do. So that's where we're at.
So talk about that process a little more, because to me, that sounds like the most daunting task in the entire world. Writing one song itself is difficult. Mm-hmm. Finishing a song especially is difficult, right? Mm-hmm. Putting the finishing touches on. But doing it for a whole album just feels so much more difficult. Maybe needlessly so. Just because, the world that we live in, the way streaming works and everything like that. I don't know how albums are taken as much these days. I know Mason and I, that's how we prefer to listen. We'd rather listen to a full album all the way through instead of a single song, but I can't imagine going through that entire process, because it sounds too difficult for someone like me.
Yeah, well, I think it's freeing in some senses. So like, if you think about the idea of writing a song, okay, how broad of a concept is that? What is a song? A song could be anything. All the different genres we have, tempos, keys, styles, feels, like there's so many variables to think about. But when you start putting like some constraints of like, I want this song to feel this way and to do this, there's the challenge of, trying to deliver on that. But there's also, you have like these kind of like guardrails and these boundaries that are sort of helpful, because you're always then testing, I like it, but is it serving the purpose it's supposed to serve, knowing what this song's message is going to be about. Does this really kind of help convey that feeling or that thought or that emotion? And so in that side of things, that's why I was saying it was challenging in a good way. It was like really freeing to kind of learn a different way to write songs. And I've kind of done that in the past, but like a song or two on an album, maybe. But this really like just pushed me in a different way. And so I found it to be like somewhat liberating and challenging in a good way. And it produced like results that I'm really happy with. And it made me do things that I know I would not have done had I had those sort of like boundaries.
Sure. Did you like storyboard it then? Like I don't know if that's like the correct term, but basically like write out like, hey, this is the map or this is the game plan we want to kind of traverse.
Yeah, I mean, so I have a whole story that I wrote basically, and I've been working on finishing it like an actual narrative for people to read. Hopefully, I've never written anything like that before, but I just sat down and I just started off by writing like a 7 to 10 page narrative of the whole story, and then from there I sort of like reverse engineered it and just thought, okay, how can I get from point A to point B, and how do songs serve that purpose? And also not trying to like answer all the questions and say everything that needs to be said, because we know there's different ways we're going to tell the story, not just in the music, in the music videos, and also in, maybe there's going to be a narrative for people to access and to just read. Crazy thing, 2025.
Ooh,
reading,
there you go.
Yeah. So that'll be for the people that are interested in that. But I think in this day and age, like you guys said, like I'm just like you, I consume albums. I love albums. But if you think about some of the biggest bands in like even just heavy music, like Sleep Token and Spirit Box, those are bands that they're making albums, and their fans want to listen to albums. And I think that that listener's there. You could really try to fight for the low-hanging fruit and just kind of get lost in the sea of whatever other like heavier band is doing, but I think if you just kind of live in your own world and don't watch what everyone's doing and try and really do your own thing, I think that works better for you. And even like bands I know you guys are fans of and friends of, Silent Planet, that's always just kind of been who they are. And I think the bands that last, and success is relative, but that have success, have like a true fan base, it happens through that medium almost always.
Very true.
So
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it every now and then we'll talk to maybe like a heavy band that is kind of doing the thing where they just keep releasing singles and whatnot. And obviously, like, I'm not here to tell any band what they should or should not do.
Of course.
But it is interesting. It does seem to me like, okay, maybe the releasing singles one at a time maybe works for a certain kind of genre of music, especially maybe even a certain kind of artist that's trying to emerge within a genre. Even big pop stars are still continuing to release albums, right? Like Taylor Swift's still putting out massive albums, right? So she's not releasing one song at a time. So it does seem to be maybe a feasible way to get your start if you're a brand new artist that's just trying to make it. But as like a band, especially a more established band, and especially bands that are in like the heavy music industry, it's just not, from my experience, it's just not what the audience wants. Audience doesn't want just a series of singles that might get released once a month. Like they really just want an album that feels cohesive, that they can listen to all together, and it makes sense that why these select 12 songs or whatever it is, they make sense together as a group. And that seems to be something that's still appreciated in heavy music. It might not be appreciated in other music genres, but it certainly seems to be appreciated in this scene.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think even like you referenced Taylor Swift. I mean, it doesn't get any more like mainstream than that. But you can see that sort of like fandom. It's really the same type of person. They just have different musical tastes.
Right.
They found an artist that they click with and connect with and kind of speaks to them, whether it's musically, lyrically, and or both. And so they're like, I'd rather have more, They don't kind of just want the ear candy. And so I think, we're making music for ourselves at the end of the day. We're making the music that we want to hear. And, that's why we're making albums. We want to hear albums. That's pretty simple.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well,
speaking of albums too, this is your 6th album off of Solid State. And I'm trying to think through right now of, Tooth and Nail, Solid State, all those types of bands. I'm trying to think through who might have more albums on a Tooth and Nail label than you guys. I think Norma Jean, I think, is there, right?
Yeah.
They've got it.
Well, but they also had a few that were on Razor and Tie.
Yeah, they were. Razor and
That's
Tie.
true, but I'm
Ferret.
guessing
Ferret.
still
Ferret.
in total there's more than 6. They've got to be right around like 6.
Maybe
or 7.
Starflyer.
But maybe I was about to say Starflyer for sure has got to be. I mean, they've got like 20 albums probably on Tooth and Nail, but I can't really think of too many other bands that might have 6 or more albums now. Maybe Silent Planet. Silent Planet doesn't have 6
I think
albums,
they
do
got 4 or 5.
Yeah, but I'm trying. Maybe this is something that you've thought about, and I'm sure you grew up listening to some Solid State bands. But that, like, at this point, like, you guys are historic in terms of output as a Solid State band. Like that's got to be something that's pretty unique. And again, like, I don't know, especially with this new release, like if that's something that you've thought about as being a like, oh wow, like this is our 6th album on Solid State, and like there's not too many other Solid State bands that can say that.
Yeah, it's really those last few words of that sentence that I've definitely thought, like, wow, this is our 6th album. This is so cool that we're here. One album was the goal, but then you're right, on Solid State. And I never think about, I think because like the bands that like got me into Solid State, none of them are here except for Norma Jean. So like I kind of lose sight of, like, I don't feel like we so badly wanted to be on Solid State when we saw all those bands to be a part of what they were doing, but we like got there and they were all gone. And so like even Norma Jean. And so we kind of felt like we're here. We're like, oh wait, nobody's here. Like, what happened? Like, where is everybody?
You guys kind of came in during the dog days there for a little while.
A little bit. Yeah. But so I don't ever think about it in that like point of reference, but that it is really cool. And I really hope that, we are able to add a small part of what the feelings that I got for Tooth and Nail and Solid State bands, part of just that, legacy of bands that have been a part of that. That would be cool if we were able to give that to some music listeners as well.
Heck yeah. Well, I've got a question about the musical stylings. You wouldn't happen to be a Blade Runner fan, would you?
I am.
I was the very first time I heard these new songs. I was like, man, I feel like I'm in Blade Runner right now. Like I am Harrison Ford.
Man, so I mean, if you really wanted to compliment me, I know you guys were saying I was better looking than Dustin, which is not true. But that right there, that's some high praise. Definitely a major inspiration, and that was another like new thing for me was. Trying to take inspiration from places outside of music that aren't music, like visually, and really trying to think about that. And so honestly what I did is I just pulled a bunch of stills from movies that I loved, that I felt communicated the feeling and the environment of sort of the world I was imagining in my head. And Blade Runner was one of those, Mad Max, Book of Eli.
Oh, good movie. I haven't seen that in a long time. Yeah. Yeah,
so like kind of a conglomeration of all of those things, and honestly, if The Lord of the Rings was like set in the future somehow, trying to imagine even some of that sort of world and vibe, not so much the storyline, but sort of the feeling of that world is very interesting if you ever think about and just how Tolkien, understands the way he portrays good and evil is actually so different than so many modern depictions of what that looks like.
For sure. The technocrat of the microchips instead of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like that. No, that's a really insightful kind of image to put in people's minds as they go through listening to these things, I think, or these new tunes. I think it's definitely going to help color and influence their mental image as they're listening, especially if they're active listening. Because I mean, that's what I was doing, and that was exactly where I went. So you hit the nail on the head pretty well there, I'd say.
Man, well, that's cool. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to imagine like the Eagles in a futuristic Tolkien universe, just like a bunch of drones.
It's just a SpaceX rocket.
Well, it would be like a friendly drone, so it would be more like, you know, some sort of like BB-8, you know, R2D2 flying. You know, it's like kind of cute, but like majestic, you know. I don't know what that looks like.
Chopper is just going to come and rip you to shreds.
Yeah.
I love it.
I'm curious for you guys with this new album, like, you know, obviously it sounds like, you know, kind of from like a concept album perspective, like that is a new thing that you all are exploring with this new album in comparison to other albums. Just from like a music standpoint, just from the instruments, like, is there anything that you're kind of doing that you're like, oh, that's definitely kind of a new thing? Maybe it's just like a new guitar tone that you guys are playing around with, or maybe it's a new drum tone that you're playing around with. But I'm just kind of curious, like, were there new sort of sounds that you guys were trying to do, or maybe just you're maybe trying to write like in a different way? Maybe you're trying to put a breakdown in a different spot than you normally would. I'm just curious, like, from a kind of music and instrumentation kind of standpoint, is there anything that you guys are doing a little differently on this album than previous albums?
Yeah, I mean, we ended up seeing, you know, after we were done, the difference. But the one thing that, like, I decidedly wanted to do differently, you know, again, like with the sixth album, it's really cool, but you also are fighting against a lot of your natural instincts that could end up being repetitive. There's natural instincts that are good, but there's some that you fall back on that are repetitive. And, you know, I don't want like vocal melodies to sound similar to the last album, in the sense that it's like, oh, that sounds like that kind of what you did last album, you know.
Right.
You can only escape that so much, but even just song creation. And so one of the things I decided to do differently was, you know, a lot of time I would start songs like on the acoustic and just trying to like work out melodies and lyrics, or I'd just start writing riffs. And what I tried to do differently was, I'd been watching a ton of videos of these like producers that just do like electronic music, and how they'll take samples, like they'll record like a door closing and slamming and make a beat out of it, and they'd have like they challenge each other to like make like this, you can only use this one audio file, and start making beats and stretching it and tuning it and making a melodic, taking like the squeaky door and making that a melodic element, you know.
Wow.
Making the door closing, that thud, that's the kick, and when you hear the lock latch, that's the snare, and how they treat that. And I was just like floored by their creativity. And so, you know, probably 4 years ago, I just started fiddling with that. And so one of the ways I tried to challenge myself is like, how would you start a song if these were the only tools you had? And that's why you could probably hear a lot of those, you know, more electronic, you know, I guess Blade Runner-esque or industrial sounding sorts of vibes with the songs, because I was just trying to find different ways to like spark creativity. And what's exciting for me was just to see like the different type of like guitar playing that I would try and figure out to match what I'd already began with that. There's a song on the album called Smoke, and Joey, our other guitar player, he actually just sent me, he bought like a synth plugin and made like that first sound at the very beginning of that song. And as soon as I heard that, like I started just envisioning the whole song. And it's nothing I would have ever written had I probably sat down and just play guitar. Mm-hmm. And so that was a different approach, and we got different results. And that's what was really exciting for me, was to like feel like guitar playing was fresh and new again. And I was actually playing guitar a lot more like riffier stuff, and kind of going back to the, my earlier days of playing probably faster than I can or should in certain parts. And,
there are moments, like one of the things I love about this new album, or at least from what I've heard so far, is you kind of get this sort of cinematic, ethereal feel that's going on. Obviously, you're talking about some of the synths and kind of experimentation that you do with that. But there are moments in this album that feel almost like the heaviest you guys have ever been. Yeah. And that dynamic is, I mean, Cullen always talks about how much he loves dynamics. That is a dynamic that is something that we absolutely love.
Yeah, and I think part of it too is the older I get, the less that I care about, if that makes any sense. The less that I care about what other people think, and I'm also I'm trying to just savor every moment we have to make albums. And there's lots of music that I like, and in the past I'd put sort of limits on like what the band should or shouldn't do or could or couldn't do, and I've just been throwing them out year after year, what those things are, because if it's something I like and it's something I want to do and everybody like is into it, like what's stopping us, And it's kind of fun, like when you write something and I send it to the guys and it makes them like laugh out of like oh my goodness, like this sounds belligerent, or this is like that's so low, or that's so slow, or you half timed it there, all those sorts of things that like, I don't know, it makes music fun for us, and just don't want to have any rules. And we also just wondered, what is a really what is a heavy Wolves of the Gate song? Always trying to maybe push what that feels like, and what could that be, and still feel like us. And so that was fun for me to explore, because like a song like Law of the Wasteland, I knew what the song was supposed to be about, and I shouldn't really show up too much on a song that's about an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. There's not too much room for some clean singing there. So that's what happened.
That makes sense. Love it. So thematically, obviously there's some it feels like there's a lot of pessimism here, which I'm all for. Obviously you have like a little bit like a dystopian kind of setup, we got the song titles will tell you a lot, I think, alone. And then you take it a step further and you hear a lot of these lot heavier songs than I think you guys have done in the past, and things of that sort as well. Would you mind just maybe giving us a little taste as to your concept of what the major themes are?
Yeah. So, the Wasteland it's built in a metaphor as a world, but it's really a mentality. And it's, when I say mentality, what I mean is the thing that, what I try to do is basically this, like, I feel like when we all look out into the world, we have sort of a sanitized, like, some people are very pessimistic, but I think we all have a very sanitized, like, idea of what the world is like and what humanity's like, and we hide selfishness so well. So much of what we do is entrenched in selfishness. I mean, we were talking about politics before. You talk about a bunch of people saying that they're caring about the masses and their job is to serve, but they're leeches, But all they are is an expression, of what a lot of us would probably do given that same sort of power.
Definitely.
And so what we're trying to do with the Wasteland is maybe sort of peel back some of the niceties of the things that we maybe mask in, like, well, I'm just like taking care of myself, or, I got to look out for myself. It's like all of this is really just entrenched in a selfishness and a self-centeredness. And that's what a lot of the album sort of focuses on, is what does it look like to live lawlessly, and what is the result of living lawlessly? Sort of living for yourself, really, and living based on your own rules, your own morality, your own agenda, your own purpose. And with that, everyone becomes an enemy. When you're trying to live for yourself only, everybody is an obstacle to your joy, to your peace, to your comfort. And, you'll try to do whatever you can to survive. Like, you're not going to be a maniac, but the ways that we try to, quote unquote, survive can still be pretty inhumane and brutal. And really, I'm just with these songs, I'm trying to paint a picture of maybe what goes on in sort of the unseen world of our minds. When I say we, like I'm the greatest test subject I have. I can't get inside anybody else's mind. And so I'm not sitting here like judging the world going, look how selfish everybody is except for me. It's like, where do you think I'm getting these ideas? I see my own selfishness come out, and I'm married, I have kids. I remember when I first got married, it's kind of like somebody turned the light on in the dark part of a room that I didn't know existed, and I'm just kind of like, wow, okay, that's ugly. Why am I responding this way? This is the person that I love more than anybody else in the world, and I've hurt her more than anybody else has ever hurt her. And the same thing with my kids. I love my children to death, but I see at times like I just like don't want to give to them the things that I should give to them, like when I say like of myself. And so I see all these things in myself, and really the wasteland is sort of a picture of a world that I don't want to live in. And I find myself sort of going back to it time and time again. And this album hopefully serves as a reminder to me and to maybe a lot of other people, this is the end of living that way. And it will rob you of all joy, peace, and comfort.
Mm-hmm. I'm reminded of a song by The Who called Won't Get Fooled Again. And the beginning goes, meet the new boss, same as the old boss. Has a lot of the same kind of thematic elements that you're discussing. And then in the end, it says, I'm just going to get down on my knees and pray.
Mm-hmm.
We won't get fooled again. And by we, like, are we going to continue to fool ourselves in this case? Are we going to, like, just keep putting those scales over our eyes and saying, nope, it's not as bad as everyone wants to make it out to be? Like this, this selfishness or the maybe the wrought individuality that comes from living in the culture that we do and the world that we do and the technologically connected world that we do. So I think it is a timeless message that needs to keep being portrayed.
Yeah, I like the way that you worded that because, I referenced this song just before, Smoke. That song, where it's at in the album, is at this point the character should be recognizing all of these things that are exposed in him, and he's just trying to hide it, and that's, the phrase blowing smoke, but in the chorus, he's blaming it on false devils, the old phrase, got the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other. The devil made me do it. It's like, no, like you're responsible for your own, like no one makes you do anything, that you don't want to do, I guess in regards to your character and how you act. And, the thing that I've realized about myself is, when I think about the gospel and who Jesus is and what he came to do, the people that he's coming to and are receiving his care and his love and his mercy are the people that recognize how desperately they need it. And we just so badly don't want to be seen for what we are, but like the lepers know they're lepers and he's their only hope. And that's why when they come to him and they say, if you're willing, you can make me clean. And he says, I am willing. But you have to see that you're a leper first. And that's so much of what this first album is about, is hopefully just a mirror for us to look in. And it's not fun for me for a whole album to really be working to that end. But, we just realized in the past, we would try to accomplish a lot in one song. It's like, why don't we play the long game and see what we can accomplish in an album and start working towards, a deeper dive into maybe thinking about these things. Because to me, the more that I guess deeply dive into understanding my weakness and my need for Christ, when I see who he is and what he provides, it's that much more beautiful when I'm able to receive it, And so that's kind of what we're hoping to do with this album and hopefully more to come.
Mm-hmm. A thought that is kind of coming to my mind right now is, as you're kind of maybe talking about your interpretation of the narrative and themes that you talk about in this album, obviously being the author of that narrative and those themes, you would imagine like, okay, you probably have the correct interpretation of it. But I'm curious, like when you think of maybe, in 30 days now, fans are going to start listening to this album and they might have their own interpretations on what maybe some of the lyrics mean to them. And I'm just curious for you, knowing that it does seem, especially in like a sort of concept album, there is like a sort of narrative that you're trying to get across or a theme that you're trying to get across. And I'm just curious, like, what do you do when like maybe a fan might have like maybe a somewhat different interpretation of a narrative than you as the author of that narrative would have? I'm just kind of curious, like if that does happen, which it very well could likely
especially
happen.
if they take it in a way that's
maybe it just feels a little different now since this is a concept album versus like some of your previous albums. Anyway, curious about that.
Yeah, no, I mean it's happened with songs. It's happened with us with songs of ours before, and to me, like I don't really. It's one thing if somebody asks me outright, is this what you wrote it about? Then I'll feel compelled to just say like, well, and I'll try and find a way to maybe thread in what they're saying as long as it's like not like crazy and outlandish, but for me, as long as I don't think whatever they're believing would be destructive to them, I try to leave room for them to take the good thing that they're getting. Why would I ruin that? If it's a good thing, I don't want to take that from them. And so for me, it would just be, a question of if I think that it might be like harmful for them to be taking maybe something that if it's a message that wouldn't be good for their soul, basically, that's what would concern me. And I have never really run into a situation like that before. And I've definitely heard tons of different perspectives, or people take a line and they take it to mean something else. I know what I meant by that line, and it's not like it doesn't hurt my feelings, but it does make me think like, well, that's cool that you were able to pull that from this. That's definitely not what I meant, but I see that it's benefiting you, and I'm grateful for that because it just shows that I wasn't nearly smart enough to think of that. Like it was just, I just wrote it and it got used for something good despite me, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's better than the opposite where you get like a Helter Skelter, the Beatles and a cult out of it,
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it reminds me of like, if we were to look at like the Bible, like you might read a verse and interpret it in some way, shape or form because of like your own experiences. And I might have maybe a slightly different way of interpreting it because I have a different experience in life. But nonetheless, like the fact that like a single verse or multiple verses in the Bible can like inspire us in that way to be better humans, to follow Jesus in a better way, or whatever it might mean for each and every person. Like I think that's like that's one of the beautiful things about like the Bible, or really not just the Bible, but like really any scripture, or even just even lyrics or poetry or whatever it might be. Like it's really cool how, because each and every human has their own experiences, they're probably going to interpret this a little differently, but nonetheless it could inspire them to be a better person or inspire them in their life in a different way than even maybe what the author was intending.
Yeah, I mean, when things are truthfully true, there is depth and layers to what that may be, if that makes any sense.
Right. Like, well, I think what you're saying is like something that's true is going to be universal to each and every human. How they might interpret that truth might be a little differently from each and every person, but it's going to be true nonetheless.
Yeah, because the truth is powerful, and so the way that I picture it as kind of like the truth is like a woven tapestry and has all these threads. You may be tugging at one part of it, and it's a good part because it's part of the truth. It may not be exactly what I was trying to communicate, but to me, at the end of the day, it's it's part of a whole. It's part of a whole, and to me, it's like if somebody's just getting even that at its base level, I'm grateful for that, and I think that's a way that it's really hard to think about music. It's also really easy to make it bigger than what it is too, and for me to understand that, like, music is powerful. Don't get me wrong. Music is an incredibly like powerful tool and vehicle, but to also not put so much like pressure on myself to like to think that I'm gonna do or be or accomplish something. Anytime I've tried to do that, it's gonna fall flat in its face, and it's kind of like you just create it. And for me, I just trust that God's gonna use it and in the way that He sees fit, because it's not up to me anyway. I can't make you interpret anything, by, even if I had the most compelling like argument in the lyrics, I can't compel you through my song.
It's a good point. It's a good point. Are we feeling good, Mace, or are we ready for guilty pleasures?
If you're ready,
all right.
I'm ready.
Steve, you ready for guilty pleasures?
The pleasures that are guilty.
All right. Well, you can go in whatever order you like. Guilty pleasures of Steve.
Yeah, so when thinking about this, it was helpful that you said, what are things that you'll listen to that, like, especially the other guys in the band would be like, I don't like this, or like, why?
Or they would make fun of you for it.
Why would you enjoy? Like, how do you enjoy this? One of the first ones that came up was they're like a funk soul band called Jamiroquai.
Oh, I love Jamiroquai. Oh, yeah, good call though.
Such a good band.
To me, it's just like it just feel good music. Like when you hear it, like how do you get upset? And he's just a happy dude. I don't know why he's wearing an Indian headdress, but doing that with his shirt off and he's dancing and singing. His band, by the way, he always has the like most phenomenal musicians.
Yes.
I could just watch them play, especially their drummers. Drummers are unreal. So Jamiroquai.
You're gonna have to get what's the big song name? It's blanking right now. Where he's in like the room and he's got like a
and it's like moving. It's like almost like on a treadmill or something.
So, that sounds like a lot of the songs.
Yeah, it's the big one.
So Canned Heat, Love Philosophy.
Gosh. The hat, the big like bucket hat that's like velvety, and he's got like a.
Oh, I don't know any of the music videos.
Virtual Insanity. That's it. Yeah, you got to watch that music video, and you got to get that hat and play with that on stage.
I've never seen any of the music videos. I only watched their live videos because they're
great live.
So good.
Virtual Insanity was like one of the coolest music videos of the.
Yeah,
90s.
it's like one of those like rotating room things. That's
awesome.
It's cool.
All right,
it's cool.
All right, I know what's going in the YouTube algorithm.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, Jamiroquai.
That's a good pick, by the way.
Well, I'm just glad you guys know who. Do we say he, they? The
Enigma.
Is he Jamiroquai?
Jamiroquai.
It is kind of kind of his solo project.
It's his solo project.
Let's go with he.
Yeah. So, yeah, Jamiroquai.
I think they have a song in Napoleon Dynamite too, don't they? Or don't,
really?
Maybe.
That's amazing. Man.
I'm pretty sure there's a Napoleon Dynamite. Like I think one of the songs that he like dances to in his room is a Jamiroquai.
That's so good.
I do remember
Canned Heat. Yeah, it's Canned Heat.
Canned Heat.
Canned Heat's in Napoleon.
I do remember Puciato when he was with Dillinger. Somebody had asked him, "Hey, who's your favorite or who's your musical icon that like for your life for like singing?" And he said Jamiroquai, and everyone was expecting like Slayer or something like that, and he's like, "No, Jamiroquai."
No, he is very inspiring. So I know people are gonna look this up and be like, "What?" If you don't get it, just deal with it and just recognize that you don't know how to have fun.
Yeah.
All right, so next one, Limp Bizkit.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oofda.
See, now you've nailed guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
You figured it out.
Yeah.
This is totally.
This is a
good.
tough one for me.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in the era where they like where they rule the world. But I mean, Wes Borland is just a riff monster. Anybody who plays guitar and like can't see past like maybe the elements they don't like, and you can't just listen to the riffs. Like, I'm sorry, but he was doing stuff in the early 2000s that bands today are trying to replicate and failing miserably. He's just still the king.
He is the saving grace of that band. But man, you have an album called what is it, hot dog water and the chocolate starfish or whatever. I just can't do it.
I mean, to be like, yeah, I listened for the riffs. I stayed for the riffs.
Yeah.
That was it.
I genuinely don't understand how Wes and Fred get along at all, because like Wes seems like this really artsy, super artsy, like eccentric guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Fred is just like this weirdo,
White
like,
monster drinking.
like, I mean, totally like trailer park dude that just like doesn't seem super artistic at all. Like he's just there. He happens to be very talented as a vocalist, but he's not like this super deep, interesting guy. Whereas Wes seems like, I don't know if you've ever seen interviews with Wes, but he's like really interesting, really deep, totally an artist.
He's a true
and they
artist.
just seem like they seem like such opposites, and yet together they just make incredible, like, catchy songs.
Yeah, I mean, I think they give each other enough room to be who they are. There's no clash really, because you said like they're just two completely different like types of like personalities that as they express themselves. And I think they both were just kind of like, you do you and I'll do me, and it just worked, you know.
Yeah.
It is a bit of an anomaly, but yeah,
they're really getting like kind of a second win right
it's
now,
huge.
They're really popping off again.
I teach high school, and I would say one of the most popular bands, at least amongst the boys, is Limp Bizkit, and I don't understand it. I mean, I get it, but I also am just like, really, of all the bands, because like I'll play them like Korn, and they're like, this stuff sucks, and I'm like, all right, it's the same thing in a lot of ways, but all right, okay, it's just a little more serious, I guess.
Yeah. Well, we did Jamiroquai, we did Limp Bizkit.
Yep.
We're gonna hit just a totally different genre now.
Good.
Dua Lipa.
Dua Lipa.
Oh yes.
I feel you there.
She's kind of like
before you go into why you're interested in her music. I will say there are very few like celebrity women that I would say like, oh my god, like I have a total crush on her, or like I just she is one of them though. I find so attractive. And that's not like I'm trying to like Aubrey Plaza, or however you say her last name.
Oh, she's from Parks and Rec?
Parks and Rec, yeah.
Yeah, Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
I find her very attractive, but yeah, Dua
similar-
Lipa.
they have a
I don't
similar
know
look.
if I may like if you play a song from her that's like even her most popular song. Maybe I've heard of it, but I couldn't.
You will
like,
know
I
it.
couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you one of her songs right now. I just know what she looks like, and I'm like, she's just very attractive.
What's crazy, Mason, is how much you love Jamiroquai, and she's like heavily influenced by Jamiroquai. And if you heard her, I think you're gonna end up having like a crazy infatuation with her after you listen to her music and see how Jamiroquai influenced it. She's inspired by like disco and funk and soul.
Is she from Britain as well? Because Jamiroquai's from Britain.
Yeah, I think she is British, but I don't believe she is ethnically British. I think that I forget where her family's from, but
Albanian.
Yeah, Albania. Yeah, there you go.
Interesting.
Yeah, because but she kind of just brought back that vibe, and I had no idea who she was. I wasn't sure if Dua Lipa was a guy or a girl for like what the name was. I just remember hearing the music, and I was like, wow, this reminds me so much of Jamiroquai, but like with like even poppier, like catchier vocals.
Here's what I really appreciate about Dua Lipa is she has brought melody back into the mainstream. Like we have not had melody for about half a decade, and now all of a sudden she pops on the scene, and now everyone's moving back to melodic lines. I feel like we've just been amelodic for a long time.
I feel like for a long time people are like, more than 4 notes in this economy? We can't do that, you know? It's like, I was like, come on, we gotta get some like melody. But you're right, melody. I mean, so yeah, she's definitely one of the artists that I never thought I would like, and I heard a song and I was like, because there's like cool band elements as well, which doesn't get its recognition in modern pop music. So
good pick.
yeah. The next the next guilty pleasure, I'm gonna name a band, but I'm also just gonna name a whole genre as well, because the guys in my band, mostly Ben, just can't stand it. But there's a band called Bad City, and Bad City, basically they tried to revive classic rock, hair metal type vibe, like Kiss, and
are they like, what's that like Led Zeppelin ripoff band that is so popular?
Greta Van
not
Fleet?
like that. No, not like
They're not like that then?
No, but they only made one album. It is like probably some of the best like production I've ever heard. Like as like a rock band, it sounds so good. The songs are so good. All the musicians are so good. But if you don't like classic rock, it's not for you. And I used to play it all the time on tour, and Ben would be like, "Not this record again." And he was just like, "It's so annoying." I'm like, "Why is it annoying?" I was like, "This is like classic rock, like in this modern day and age."
It's for everybody.
Yeah, the band's called Bad City, but like most any classic rock that I would put on, the guys in the band would just punish me for like liking Led Zeppelin. And I'm like, this feels wrong. Like,
can you be
wrong.
in a band that plays guitars and drums and sings and all that stuff and not like Led Zeppelin?
Yes, there's a lot of them out there, and I've found them all along our touring experiences. So, you know.
Wow.
Yeah,
I am quickly losing respect for so many people.
I feel like you need to name names.
Yeah.
Throw people under the bus, Steve.
Who's the biggest hater in the band? Let's say that.
Well, I know Ben's the biggest hater, but yeah, I'm trying to think about bands we toured with. More so is just shock and awe that they don't know any Led Zeppelin, or they don't know, like even like not knowing Nirvana.
Are you touring with 16-year-olds or what?
That's what I'm telling you, man.
This should be their wheelhouse.
Yeah, it should be, but it's kind of like so like when we started touring, we were around so many bands that like the bands they knew like started with Asking Alexandria, like
That's
that
so
sort
weird
of,
to me.
you know, which is weird for us because like it's at that point nothing was really underground at that point. Like bands in that scene were already in like had like more of a mainstream vibe,
Right.
You know. They never saw the rise of like, you know, the Taking Back Sundays, who like you can't believe they played Kimmel, you know, like from being a, you know, an emo band out of Long Island to like having national recognition. So yeah, but I digress.
No, I get you. I get you. That is just very strange to me. You know, it's it feels anti. I don't know, how do you say it? Not scene. Trying to think of the right word to put in there, but it's not
alternative.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah, it's the wrong alternative for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in the last band that I could think of, that here's the thing, they were people considered them a guilty pleasure for a long time, and then they became cool to people in the scene, but Paramore. So
I was thinking about that too.
Interesting.
Yeah,
so,
I think you're absolutely right.
Because like Paramore, for the longest time, like you couldn't say you like them back when they were like a Warped Tour band, because they weren't heavy and they had a girl singer, and I'm just like, I don't care. This is awesome. Like I'm like, this is you could see how much they were inspired by Jimmy Eat World, and you would never say that about Jimmy Eat World, you know.
That's a good point.
But I think it was just all the cards that were stacked against them in that era. But I thought it was awesome, and so I took a lot of heat for being an open fan of Paramore and being in a heavy band. So
I think Mason would agree with you there.
I think you're absolutely. Yeah, I absolutely agree in the fact that like, yeah, I think there was a certain time where people in our scene for sure would have seen them as a guilty pleasure, and I think people now kind of turn around and realize, oh wait, like
think about how much they've done for this.
We
scene.
should appreciate them for who they are, because they actually are super legit. Clearly have influenced an entire. I mean, now you're starting to see pop artists like, you know, even who is it, like Olivia Rodrigo basically got sued by, or there was a lawsuit about like how similar she sounded to Paramore.
Had to give them,
so
she gave them writing
back.
credit.
Right.
Yeah, she gave them writing credit proactively.
And yeah,
because they realized how much it sounded like.
I think I heard too that
Paramore.
like it was just the record labels that were putting it on, because Haley was like, no, this is fine.
Yeah,
she's like, I don't care.
I can see the band totally being chill about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But even like the new Chapel Roan album that came out last year, like they're not every song's like this, but there are some songs that do kind of have a little bit of that punk emo vibe of guitar work that totally is. It has to be an homage to Paramore.
Yeah, they're a genre, you know. But back in they really are. But back in the day, you know, they weren't, and it was almost like it was too poppy. It was bubblegum music. It wasn't scene music. You know, but I was like, who cares? If it's good, it's good.
That's right.
Like, you know, and then nobody said that about Jimmy Eat World, you know, who they came through, and they obviously had some big hits that came through, but nobody ever says they were sellouts or anything. So I always felt like they got a bad rap in the beginning, and then everyone's like, oh, I love Paramore. And I'm like, where were you? Where were you?
I do think a lot of it is like people from the scene just like have this sort of like if there's a woman that's fronting the band, that's like automatically credited or whatever. And hopefully people have now realized like Haley is truly one of the most talented vocalists that we've ever seen, and we need to appreciate her for who she is, because I mean, it's truly unlikely that we'll ever have like a woman that can sing, or really truly not just a woman, but like anyone be able to sing like that has like kind of a more like emo vibe.
Yeah, and also to just do things on their own terms on a huge stage. Yeah. You know, that's tough, you know? Yeah. And it's tough to sort of have the belief in not even belief, just the resolve to just do what you want to do, you know? Because like their most recent album, you know, a lot of people would go like, oh, that's not what I wanted it to be. And it's like, well, it's what they wanted it to be. So you kind of got to deal with it.
They're one of those bands that has been able to have like top singles over the course of an entire decade, and even more. I mean, they've figured out kind of a good formula of mixing what is truly Paramore sound with like whatever might be just a good, you know, kind
pop
of mix of good pop stuff at the time or whatever. They've always figured that out.
I'll say this:
Haley is one of these like white whales that I have. I'm certainly not a huge Paramore fan. I like their stuff, but I'm not a huge Paramore fan. But what I'm always fascinated by is the fact that she's like a huge Chariot fan. She's a huge Me Without You fan. Like all these bands that we all love, she's a huge fan of all those bands, and nobody ever interviews her about that. And so I would love to interview her sometime to just, I'm sure she could nerd out about the Chariot or Me Without You or all these bands. And nobody ever asks her those kind of questions. So I feel like maybe we have a shot at potentially interviewing her sometime.
Yeah, it's just, they got too big, and the people that interview her, like, Paramore is about as edgy as they get, you know, true. So I'm sure they have no clue about, you know, the crust punky, you know, floor show world that she came from, you know.
For sure.
I will blame Lowe's for my disdain for Paramore, though. I mean, I am kind of a hater still, because Lowe's I used to work at Lowe's in college.
Oh, Lowe's.
And Lowe's.
I thought you were talking about the band Lowe's.
No, not Lowe's.
And
sorry. Lowe's, as in the hardware store. I worked there in college, and they played Still Into You literally every 25 minutes.
Yeah, I could see that.
It just ground my nerves to a pulp. So, yeah, it is what it is, though.
That's a great list, though.
It is a very good list.
Fantastic guilty pleasures list.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm surprised I did that so quickly.
Yeah.
But as soon as Colin, you said what you said, I had like these memories of people trying to shame me for the music I listened to.
You get it.
Yeah,
that's
good.
Great. Wonderful. Steve, what do you want to plug? Obviously, new album comes out in like 30 days, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you want to plug around the album? I'm sure there'll be shows at some point.
Yeah.
What do you want to plug?
I want everyone to listen to it on the internet and the streaming services that you use. Watch the videos that we put out, because it's not just us jumping around in a room. We're trying to tell you a story. The music video we put out for Parasite is actually much more a short film than it is a music video. It's actually probably 2/3 film and 1/3 music video. And so we're trying our best to give you guys more. We don't get more money for doing that. For the video to be longer, we lose more money doing that. And so we're doing that for you guys. So watch it, immerse yourself in the story, and hopefully you'll join us for the ride. But apart from that, it's ironic that we're talking about Limp Bizkit, but I'm pretty sure I want to start my own like rap rock band. And
really?
Yes.
Do you have a name already?
That I can't share yet for legal purposes.
Is it not PG-13 or what?
No, I don't want to say it and then somebody takes it.
Oh, that's a good call.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough.
You could trademark it right now. I mean, if it's on the internet, it's trademarked. So
I don't know if it works. I don't think it works that way.
I mean, we could put it up on Wikipedia and make sure that it is.
Do you okay, so you don't have a name picked out. Do you at least have a Michael Jackson song that you would like to cover picked out?
No, I have a Who song that I want to cover.
Nice. What song?
A Who
Is it
rap
Behind
rock
Blue
song?
Eyes?
Holy cow.
Like Limp Bizkit did?
Yeah, I want to cover Limp Bizkit covering the Who.
LIMP. I remember the first time hearing that because I was a Who fan before a Limp Bizkit fan, but I heard the weird electronic voice come on with that, and I was like, what is this? This is an abomination.
Yeah, and you know what? Maybe this project will just turn into what bands can I cover their covers of a cover.
That's such a good idea, actually.
See if we can, how deep we can go into
it's like
Inception.
That's super meta.
Exactly.
I love it.
Why are we literally thinking the same thing? Exactly. Yep. So maybe that's what the rap rock band will morph into.
What's another big cover from a rap rock group?
Alien Ant Farm, Smooth Criminal.
I mean,
yeah.
There's got to be another really big one, I'm sure.
I'm trying to think if Linkin Park ever did any covers. Well, sort of. Well, if you want to like consider the like Jay-Z song, like a cover.
Reanimation.
Yeah.
I wonder who I could get to reanimate with me. That's a real question.
Well, you know what I think you have to do is I think you have to go back to the original rap rock cover song, which is Rum DMC and Aerosmith, Walk This Way.
Yeah, I mean, I should begin by covering that song.
Yeah, you should go chronologically.
Yeah, or I mean, I'm sure there's some CCM, old school nuts that would want to hear just a revisited Jesus Freak by DC Talk.
Yeah. Rock Fist. I want to hear Rock Fist as well.
Do you remember? Did you guys ever hear Chasing Victory's cover of Jesus Freak?
No.
Yes.
Yeah. Duh, we have. We totally have. We've talked about this.
We've heard it, and we've definitely talked with them about it.
I remember now.
You talked with him about it?
We listened to it with him.
Oh, get out of here.
Yeah. That's a good
Did
one.
Did he have fond memories of doing that, or
it was more of like the label kind of was like, hey, could you do this kind of thing. So it was definitely more of like a contract obligation type of deal than like, oh wow, we really love this band, but I don't think they really had a like, oh, we really hate doing this kind of vibe. Like I didn't get that.
I think it kind of,
but it was something where it was a little bit more obligated.
I felt like it was a little tongue in cheek. Just from what I was gathering, body language wise, yeah.
For them to,
it
do
is
the
a
cover.
little hilarious
to do
that band
cover
would cover
particular.
a DC Talk song.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Yeah. Chasing Victory, man. Just gone too soon.
Rest in peace.
R.I.P.
Rest in peace.
Yeah.
Well, we're excited for not only the new music that's going to be coming out with Wolves at the Gate, but at some point. Clearly, this the rap rock group, you got something here.
Rap rock. We're gonna do it all.
Love it. I think Cullen cut out, but Steve, thanks so much for chatting more about the new album. We're just really, really stoked. It's going to be one of the top albums, I'm sure, for at least Cullen and I. So
cool.
Super stoked about it. Hopefully, we get to see you on the road at some point.
Yeah, for real, man. Thanks. I appreciate it. And as always, fun conversation. And Thanks for unearthing my guilty pleasures. I appreciate that.